Hello and welcome to Beyond the Scale, Weight Loss and Wellness. I'm your host, Coach Monica. I'm joined today by Coach Darcy, and we are here to guide you through the ins and outs of a lifestyle that's transformed not just our lives, but the lives of countless women navigating the waves of perimenopause and menopause. Whether you're here to shed weight, understand your body better, or simply find a community that gets it, you're in the right place. So sit back and enjoy the next few minutes as we tackle the hot issues of today. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to be behind the mic today. So excited to talk about this topic that we have. Coach Darcy's with me, and we're going to talk about a topic that we live every day. When we sit with our clients each and every day, there are some things that pop out to us. There's some things that, some patterns that we have experienced as coaches for almost 10 years now. And this is a really big highlight. This is one that we probably talk about every single day with a client. We see clients and we go through ups and downs with them, and we see the weight loss and we see the struggles and we see all of the stuff, because when you're a coach, you get into the pit and you walk with them every step of the way. And so when we see trends, we feel like, hey, it's important to talk about them. It's important to put it out there, because what is hidden stays hidden. And what we bring to the forefront really it's a guiding light for our coaching. And so today we're going to talk about a kind of a hard subject. It's called reset. It's called what to do when you fall off track, because we all do it. Not one single client that comes to us and says, hey, coach, I'm off track. Not one of those times does it surprise us, because it's life, right? We do things, and, we've got a protocol, we've got the recipe, but that recipe doesn't include individual living. And that's what we do every single day. And when a client falls off track, we don't want them to start over, right? We want to break that start over mindset, because sometimes that becomes a crutch. Sometimes that becomes an excuse. And sometimes it becomes a really, really big setback for them. And so if we break the start over mindset, when we teach them fast recovery after these setbacks, this is a big one. When we remove the guilt and the shame, that's when we see victory. That is when we see a lifetime of weight loss versus just a diet. So today we want to talk about how we can give you a resettable reset strategy, because it's not a matter of if it happens to you, it's a matter of when. And it's in the when cycle that you determine your success or your failure. And so for us and for our clients, the problem isn't falling off track, because we know that's going to happen. It's what do you do after? So, Coach Darcy, you are here behind the mic with me today. Let's talk about this today, all right?
Yeah. First, I feel like we have to, touch the psychology of a setback. We watch our clients go through this. Sometimes it's one time that when they are changing their lifestyle, they have an experience of, what we call going out of the exit ramp and having a little break, because they are not seeing maybe they're having a social issue, with, a party or something, and then they have a setback with their choices. But what we really need to understand, what's happening mentally, is when somebody goes off plan, they have the off plan choice, and that initially feels like failure. That triggers, that all or nothing thinking. And we have that with our clients. We have a lot of type A personalities where they are like, okay, I'm going to cold turkey all of this, or I'm not going to do it at all. Which then also leads to overeating or quitting. So the psychology of all that is initially is wrapped up into this form of guilt, like you had mentioned. And it's not necessarily the lack of discipline, it's a learned response. I had this moment of thinking of an analogy the other day when I was talking to a client, and it was the board game Sorry. I don't know if you ever played that as a kid. But the board game, the purpose of the game Sorry is that you have to draw either one or two. You have all your little pods in the start, and then you have to draw one or two to be able to even get out of the start. And then once you get that, then that's when you are in the game. You're able to go all the way around the board, and then at the end of the board is home. And home is where you have to get all of your pods there, to win the game. But what our clients tend to do is they are ready to go. They drew a one or two. They get out of home, and then they, go a few up as the dice is rolled, and then all of a sudden they see that exit ramp. They see maybe a habit that is really a struggle because they've had this habit forever that they then, fall off track. They decide to, join in on that party that people are having. So if you think about it, if in the game of Sorry, if you draw or if you roll a certain number, you have to go back home. So every time that you are making a mistake with your life journey, when you are not paying attention to your set goals in mind, you are putting all of that hard work to get us, even if it's almost to that home slot for Sorry, you could be almost at home and make a mistake, and then you have to go all the way back home. So that's the whole game board. So every time that you have a one-off moment, or if you have a given type of situation where you go ahead and have that piece of chocolate that everybody else is having, or that chocolate ice cream, like whatever it may be, that is setting you back home. And so the key message here is a moment is not a pattern unless you turn it into one. So the moments that you have like that can turn into a pattern, because you can be like, oh, like it was when I first started I wasn't keto yet, but I think I talked about a couple episodes before where I gave up sugar, and I then allowed myself to have a girls' night. I would reward myself with a girls' night, and we would, have trivia, and I would order whatever I wanted on that menu that I felt like I wanted, and that was my reward. But then that happened more and more and more. So that became the pattern for me. I was no longer on a weight loss journey. I was rewarding myself. So everyone has, an off moment. Everybody has, an exit ramp distraction, like you were mentioning at the very beginning. Successful people just recover faster. And those that recognize that hard work that they just erased by going off the exit ramp, one of those times they're going to have an awakening of like, oh, look at all that hard work that I put into, the past month, and I just erased it all with one move,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Back to
go
home,
ahead
right?
and talk
Back
to us
home.
about, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so this starting over, this going back to home, I love Darcy's explanation of that. And if you're not in the United States, you probably have a similar game where you're rolling the dice, and your goal is to get to the home stretch, and yet you pull a card that sends you back home. And that's exactly what starting over does. And the common pattern is you fall off the plan, got that go home, right? Go home, start the game over. You fall off the plan. That brings guilt and shame. And then you say, I'll start over on Monday. Then you drift further away, and then you repeat the cycle. And so starting over actually creates delay. And most people don't fail because they fall off one day. They fail because they think they have to start over. And so our goal today is to show you how to get back on track very quickly without drawing that go home card, without the guilt and the extremes, because starting over creates delay. It sets your goal back to home base. And so if you can find the pattern in your lifestyle. And if you can create this disconnection between delay and success, and you can break that cycle of inconsistency, you're never starting over. You're always continuing. But it's a psychological game because you think, okay, I just went out and I had these French fries. I feel like a failure. It's not, it's all or nothing for me, and like Darcy said, it leads to overeating and quitting. And if we can stop that cycle of go back home, start over, we can put a big problem in the failure mode. We can stop it. You have to stop creating the restart system. And you need to create a repeatable system. And so you need to neutralize this moment of I failed, I have to go home, I have to start from the beginning. You've got to get rid of that shame and that guilt and that punishment of what restart off. Now, I'm going to put a caveat in here that sometimes restarts are good, right? If you go on a vacation and you were like, gosh, Monica, I wasn't perfect. I had the sugar-free ice cream, but I know that there was crap in that. I know, I always put my clients on a restart program when they come home from vacation just to clean out the system, because we have no control over some of the ingredients when you eat out, on vacation, when you're doing the best you can. Sometimes you need a reset. So reset to me is not necessarily comparable to a restart, because we can abuse the restart focus. We can abuse that. If we restart every Monday, you're not going anywhere, right? And so if you can, differentiate what a restart versus a reset looks like, I think that's very, very important. I love the analogy that you bring, Darcy, with this game of sorry. There's a lot of games like that. The game we used to play as kids is the Life game. Was it called Life?
Yeah.
Where you got married. There's setbacks in that, but it's when you give up and you don't have a system in place to prevent the restart moments. That's when you break the cycle of failure. And so it's really, really important. I think I love fasting. No, take that back. I hate fasting. I'm not a good faster. I am probably the coach's non-example of what fasting should be, because I struggle with a binge eating disorder. And so fasting really triggers a lot for me. However, I know the science behind it and I know it's great, right? But I believe wholeheartedly as a coach, and what I've seen in my practice has been fasting has sometimes turned into an eating disorder and a punishment. And something that people say, well, I screwed up, so I've got to fast for 48 hours. And to me, I do not ever recommend fasting for that reason. For a reset, yes. For chemically resetting your body, yes, it's great. We all know the benefits of autophagy. We all know the benefits of fasting. However, when it turns into an eating disorder, count me out as a coach. Because a lot of people use that as an excuse to cheat. A lot of people don't have that name and call it action in their lifestyle where they, for example, if they're going through the drive-through of McDonald's and they are really, really tempted to get those French fries, right? They're like, I just want French fries. And they don't out loud verbally say, I'm going through the drive-through, I'm driving up to the pay counter, I am purchasing French fries, I know that this will not lead me to my goal, but I'm going to do it anyway. James Clear says it perfectly. He says 85% of those people who use the name and call method, and I think in his book he calls it point and call. For some reason, name and call is what pops into my head. 85% of your choices can be stopped when you name and call. And you're like, I know what I'm doing. Now, are you going to get those French fries? You may, possibly, but at least you've acknowledged it, and at least you have said to yourself out loud. We talk to ourselves a lot. We say out loud, I'm going to get these French fries, and they're not going to lead me to my goal. 85% of that can be stopped when you acknowledge it. But it's the mindless eating. It's the mindless emotional eating that leads you to failing that 85%. So I think the psychology of it all, understanding, like Darcy said, when you play the game of sorry and you have to go back home, you got to start the entire process over. What if you stop that? What if you're like, hey, I may roll the dice only one space ahead of me, but I at least didn't go back home, right? I don't know. Darcy, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, there's a route to take to prevent these things, and I think it comes with the psychology portion of things. You've got to be able to, kind of like you do in AA, you've got to acknowledge that you've got a problem. You've got to acknowledge that you're, doing things that is preventing you from hitting that actual home, and there could be things within your past that is preventing you from doing that. So identifying, that there is some, trauma in your life even that is helping you with this same old cycle that you keep being stuck in. So I think it's important for us to not only acknowledge and write down and just kind of uncover the garbage, but then there's like some other things that you can do to reset that method. It's going to take action. It's going to take, neutralizing the moment. Like you were saying with that point and call, you neutralize the moment with no guilt, no punishment. And you say, well, that happened. Now what? That's what you start out with, or just making sure, like, I think when we are dehydrated, which most of us are starting to lean on a lot of iced coffee now, we're starting to depend on, our black water. I loved that you called it black water, which is coffee, the other day. Just, when you're so focused on energy drinks, we are not actually drinking water. That is a thing that our bodies need a lot. So when we're doing that, it's really important to make sure you're hydrated and you're nourished and you're eating the proteins, you're focused on that meal, and that meal counts, that you're eating everything that is balanced and healthy. And that's what you do with that. You are focused on the hydration and nourishment. And then just making sure that you are stabilizing your blood sugar as well. Like, avoid those extremes like you mentioned with the fasting. Avoid that. Just because you fell off plan and you're going to then do a hardcore fast because of punishment, is that typically a bad move? Like if you overdid something one day and then you fast the next day? Typically no, but when you have the mindset of punishment, then that's what makes it all wrong. That's what makes it not great. But it also is that extreme, that avoiding of the extremities, like that no starving and no overcompensating for what you did. That's just not great. So stabilizing your blood sugar and just get back up. Moving your body, like the importance of movement, walking, light strength training, like that, going to the gym helps a lot of that dopamine in your brain. Sometimes I've gone into the gym and I've just felt like I've either had a headache or just didn't feel great. But after that gym, that you have that dopamine, you have that energy again, and then you have that new distraction of positivity versus where you were beforehand. And then the biggest thing is return to your routine that you are trying to build, that habit, those systems that you're creating, those positive systems. Return to them immediately. Don't wait. You don't need to wait for a clean slate. You don't need to wait for everything to disappear and everything to be peachy keen. Some people say, well, there's always tomorrow. Well, don't wait for Monday. Don't even wait for tomorrow. Every second is a new second. Even every meal, it's a new meal. So just start back up and say, I'm going to get back going. Your choice matters more than your last one. Your next choice matters more than your last one. So that's why it's important that, those seconds, like if you're thinking like, oh, I should have had that cookie, no more. And then you just keep going forward. Mm-hmm. Just look at it and say, oh, that was a bad decision. I might feel this crappy later. But I'm getting back on. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And those setbacks you have in our old lifestyle, it turned into long breaks because you have all of that shame, because you have all of that guilt. It turns into long breaks where your blood sugar becomes unstable, your insulin rises, your cravings increase. So you've poked that bear of the red dog, your stress hormones spike. But when you jump right back on, your stability comes back, it returns faster, and your progress just continues. Instead of going back to home base, you just picked up where you left off, right? And so consistency is not ever about slipping. It's about shortening the gap between those slips, because the more you shorten those gaps, the more you run right into your goals. And so we want to really, really help you shift your identity today and say things like, instead of I fell off, to I had a bad moment. I will continue now. Now, when you have that bad moment, I, Coach Monica, and Coach Darcy want you to call it out. I had a bad moment. I shouldn't have pulled into the McDonald's drive-thru to get those fries. I knew it was not. I had already stated before it was not going to get me to my goal, but I had a bad moment, and now I continue. And you drop the perfection language. And as coaches, that's very risky for us to say, because we want to see that scale. We want to see you get to your goals. And we want to see that weight fall off of you, right? So that's a very risky thing for us coaches to say. But reality says, Coach Monica, did you do that your entire time? Were you perfect your entire time when you lost 130 pounds? No, I was not perfect. But I focused on my patterns instead of those moments. I expected that I was going to have imperfection ahead of time, but I did it anyway, and I moved forward 1% at a time. The downfall that we have nowadays is we have the GLP-1 factor. And that GLP-1 factor is giving us a fake look at what weight loss looks like, because, yeah, you're not feeling those food cravings, but you're also not dealing with these, I got to deal with this head on, that I'm actually going through that drive-through because I need emotional connection. I need that emotional pat down for 21 minutes, which is what you get after you indulge in something that you know is not on plan. 21 minutes, you get a hit of dopamine. But then at the end of that, you get 8 hours of guilt and shame, right? So we're expecting the imperfection ahead of time, but we're also saying, you know what, I want to hit my goals. I have goals to be a different person this time next year. And it's by fixing that identity ahead of time. It's the people who succeed. Those people don't avoid setbacks, but they're responding to those setbacks differently. So I hope this has been encouraging to you. Right, Darcy?
yeah, absolutely.
I would
just say,
we want to be encouragement to you.
Yeah, exactly. And if you find yourself, if this related to you, maybe the things that you find yourself doing, just know that you're not behind. You didn't ruin anything. You don't need to restart. But if you do, then just know it. You can just, get back up. Just do it. Just get, every second's a new second. We always wait for a whole new day or a whole new week or whatever it is. Just start now. Now is the perfect time. Your progress is still there. You just keep building on it. You just got to keep going, and learn from it. If you're not learning from it and you keep finding yourself in a repeat cycle, then I think it's time for you to reassess and maybe talk with somebody like a coach or an accountability partner of saying, I don't know why I keep falling off. And keep blaming it on willpower. It keeps failing you, but it's not like we said, it's not about the willpower. So I would just encourage you, just keep getting back up.
Yeah. A lot of clients, Darcy, when they go off track, when they have a weak moment, when that 85% didn't work for them, a lot of people, the first thing they do is they cancel their session with us. That is the most wrong thing that you could do. to cancel your session with your coach instead of facing it and saying, all right, yeah, we had a bad week, but how could we do it better? Did you name and call your struggle? Did you do this? You don't want to go back to home. You don't want to go back to home base. It is so frustrating. And what is more frustrating to me, Coach Darcy, in this whole game scenario is that my kids love that game. And I hate that game. I hate the game, sorry, because they always,
Oh.
always win. I always go back home and I get so frustrated with it. I will not play with my son, Alex. I will not. He is vicious in that game. He doesn't care if I go back home. He does not care. But when we
No.
get that and we kind of associate that game to real life, and the fact that we could have just gone one space forward, even though my son got the number 6 on the dice, and even though he went 6 spaces ahead of me and I only went 1, eventually he's going to get back that home base call. And eventually I'm going to actually end up winning, even one space at a time. One of my most favorite examples in the book Atomic Habits, and I say this so sillily because every chapter in Atomic Habits is my favorite. But one of my favorite examples that he gives in that book is the example of the ice cube, and how watching an ice cube melt and the process, when you put yourself in this weight loss environment, comparing it to an ice cube, and you start out at, 18 degrees, and then it bumps up to 19 degrees, and then it bumps up to 20 degrees. There's nothing physically that's changed about that ice cube in those span of degrees. You bump it up to 29 degrees, 30 degrees, 31 degrees. Guess what? You've seen nothing changed about that ice cube. But when you hit 32 degrees and you keep pushing through and you hit 32 degrees, what happens to that ice cube? It starts to melt, right? And so all of that work you've done from 0 degrees to 32 degrees showed no success. And yet it bumped it up a degree, bumped it up a degree. You didn't see any change on that scale, but it was bumping up. And then you hit 32 degrees and you start to see that ice cube melt. The people that quit from the 0 to 31 degrees. They quit. And yet the temperature has gone up. They've been doing the things. And then 32 degrees, somehow they're changing pant sizes, right? Our message to you is to keep going. Stop starting over. Stop the resets. Stop beating yourself up. Just keep going. That's our message to you today. Just keep going. Darcy, any last minute thoughts?
Well, the last minute thoughts is that we are at the end of this season. I don't know, I think we had an 8-episode season that we kind of talked about to initially end with this season, about, the one thing that you just mentioned is that don't give up and keep going on and learn how to stay in it. Like that's our ultimate goal for this season. But we don't have our next season really set up yet, but our next season,
Not
who
announced
knows?
yet.
You'll have to come back.
Not-
You'll have to come back to figure out what our next set of seasons are going to be, our episodes going to be.
Yeah.
So our season
Yeah.
episodes. That's what.
We're here. We're here every Tuesday morning, and we want to give you some tools. We understand we're not giving you all of the tools. You need coaching for that. So if you are stuck in your season and you've just been like, coaches, hey, I have been on this hamster wheel of a diet. It's not you. You're not failing. It's just you don't have the accountability. You don't have that person to say the hard things to you. Our coaching is not like the influencers out there. The influencers out there are all nice and cozy and just start over. We're not that way because we have seen thousands of pounds released from bodies. We have seen type 2 diabetes reversed. We have seen PCOS. I think we have a record right now of 8 keto babies who have been struggling. Their mamas have been struggling with PCOS for years. That comes with coaching. That comes with the everyday. That comes with getting in the pit with you and saying, hey, we've been there. We know the way out. So if you are struggling, please don't wait another minute. Please reach out to us. kmhealthcoaching.org is where you find us. We want you to set up a assessment call because not everybody is starting at the same place. And so we don't want you to go on and just grab a program randomly. If you know the program, that's fine, but get an assessment call with us first because we can help you get off that hamster wheel. And we want to see you have success and not struggle every day with, oh, I'm going to reset. I was the failure. I was the problem. No, I was the problem in a lot of my weight loss journeys. I was the problem because I didn't change my lifestyle. But if that's you, grab a free health assessment with Coach Darcy or myself, and we will get you in a program. Probably it will be a 3-month program because that allows us to go through the ups and downs with you. But grab an appointment with us, and we are happy to walk with you through your journey. Tuesday mornings, guys. We download a new podcast every Tuesday morning. You're going to hear this one here next week. And so we want to hear from you. All right, Coach, I think that's a wrap.
Yeah. Sure is. We'll see y'all next week.
All right. See you guys. Take care.